Hi everyone, welcome to another X-Wing video. So today I just wanted to take a little bit of time, ease myself back into doing these videos because I've had pretty much a week off doing a little bit of painting. Ran an Imperial Assault campaign over a weekend, so I had to get all of the stuff done for Bespin Gambit. So all the pictures are up on the Dice Hate Facebook group if you want to have a look at what I've been doing last week. Feel free to check it out on Facebook. But for this video, I wanted to talk about something that's not really been niggling at me, but just a thought I've had since I've been flying the Dengaroo list that I made recently. I did a Should I Fly It video, so I will link that in the description, or I'll make a link video up in the corner. But yeah, I'll feel like Dengaroo is probably the easiest list I've ever flown for X-Wing. Now, I've been playing since Wave 1. I skipped a little bit of Wave 2 as I was moving over to Canada. And I got back into it just before Wave 4 hit. So I've been playing for a relatively long time. I've never pretended to be a world champion or anything like that. I don't feel like I'll ever get that high a placing, but I do okay. I'm pretty happy with how my play goes. I win games, I lose games. It's all fine. But one of the things that I do find is that I enjoy trying to take different lists and do different builds and seeing what you can actually do with the ships, stuff like that. And I enjoy trying to outfly my opponents. But having taken on Dengaroo just to see what it's been like and give it a go, don't feel like I've needed to. It just does its thing. And one of the problems I see is obviously people are actually blaming the Dengaroo list for being overpowered and stuff like that. But then I actually sat down and I've been watching a few games. Obviously had Monday Night Gaming last night, which is a stream I host for the Sentry Box. So I was commentating on 2 games and I played 1 game myself. And all 3 games had a Dengaroo list in them. And it won all 3 games on the stream. So obviously if that's it, job done. Don't need to do any more on this video. Dengaroo must be broken. But then I actually analysed the games as part of doing the commentary and things like that. And it feels like Dengaroo didn't necessarily win those games. The opponent just lost them. The way that the game was approached. So, for example, I think the biggest one was the first game. So you've got typical Dengaroo with Manru having the recon specialist and Dengar having R5 P8, and it's facing off against 3 T65 X-Wings. So obviously there you go. That's why you won, because T65s are underpowered. But I honestly think that this list was set up really well, had a brilliant chance of just nailing through Dengaroo. One of the things I often get asked is, how do you actually beat this list? And I feel like if you can just push big spikes of damage through, you can quite easily just go for Dengar, take him out. And this list had Wedge Antilles with a proton torpedo. It had a Wes Jansen with a proton torpedo, and it had Biggs. And Biggs has the damage reduction droid R4D9, I think it was R4D9, something like that, I can't remember. Whichever a droid is where you can reduce the number of hits down to 2 hits. So really well set up to actually just joust Dengar and take him out. And then the guy playing the list flew it through the relatively tightly packed asteroid cluster, went through some debris, so he lost his actions, couldn't fire off the torpedoes in the first exchange, and then ended up having to split off, lost shots with his list, stuff like that. And it brought to my mind one of the adages that I'd heard when I was playing a lot more League of Legends. Basically a multiplayer battle game, that kind of thing. And that was, when you're in solo queue, You don't try and crush your lane. You don't try and make big plays. You don't try and just force team fights. You just play nice and safely. Keep farming up. Keep buying your items. Keep leveling up your champion, and eventually your opponent will just beat themselves. They'll make a mistake. They will try and force an issue that doesn't need to be forced, and that's how I feel like a lot more games than we realise happen in X-Wing. I'm going to try at some point to get a bit of game tape from a few X-Wing games and try and demonstrate what I'm talking about here. And I don't just mean in casual play. I feel like this happens multiple times at high level events. But just when a player will do something to try and force an issue without thinking about the repercussions of A, if it doesn't actually work because dice are involved, or B, even if it works, what will it actually gain you? And by that I mean like getting into a position to joust Dengar and getting into range 1 early is brilliant because you're then going to get your 4 dice shots at him, stripping away tokens, reducing his agility. You'll push damage through. It'll be brilliant. But you're probably not going to kill him. You're going to give him 2 4 dice shots on bigs likely, and then he gets to break off, shoot backwards because he's got a turret, and you're facing the wrong way. And that kind of thing. Making sure you're aware of the positioning of the rocks, how you're going to maneuver around them. And one of the things I see quite a lot is that people set up for the opening round of fire, and that's normally going to be on round 2 or round 3, and then they might have the second round of fire planned out, and then after that, I've got no idea. You start flying by the seat of your pants and just trying to react to what your opponent's doing, and that's fine. But what you need to try and do to improve your play is start looking at, if I actually don't engage in turn 2 and actually keep playing for position, will I be able to engineer a situation where I get advantageous exchanges of fire for 3, 4, 5 rounds, rather than just having that one advantageous round of fire, one where it's balanced, and then another one where my opponent's just kicking my ass. And feel like people rush to get the game finished. They want the shots to be fired, and it's one of the marks of why I feel like the better players will play the much slower game. If you go back and watch some of the, we'll just go with the Paul Heaver when he won his first worlds with the Biggs Walks of Dogs list. Watch his approach. Watch how casual and laid back it is, and how precise, and how he knows exactly where he wants the opening exchange to take place. And you'll start to see what I mean. And as I said, I'll get some game tape and I'll do a flight school video on this at some point. But just try to make X-Wing easy mode not be about the list. Try and make it be about how you approach the game and how you fly. And I feel like straight away you'll see more success. But bringing it back into the Dengaru easy mode list, I wanted to take a look at some of the other lists that we have, and ones that we've had be easy lists to fly before, and why I think Dengar is easier to fly than these lists. So the previous one would be the 3 Jump Masters torpedoes. Reasons why I think Dengar is easier than this is because you don't even have to worry about your facing realistically. You've still got Zuckuss and a 3 dice primary. As nice as it is to get right opponent in your arc to get your Dengar's ability to trigger, it isn't 100% essential every round. Whereas with the 3 Jump Masters, you do have to be firing those torpedoes off. If you let someone arc dodge you for the entire game, you're not going to win. Then there was the TLTs. I believe it was arguable now whether TLTs are easier than Dengaroo. I've had a discussion with people who've flown them a lot more than I have, especially as I've never actually flown 4 TLTs. Um, but the decisions when to scatter, or when to just break off, or when to plow in and just try and bump into people to deny them shots on your damaged Y-wing, stuff like that. Choices that you can get wrong, as in Dengar comes down to point Manaroo in a different direction to Dengar so that Lone Wolf isn't switched off, and you're onto a winner. Now before that, there was the Fat with Turret meta, and that's probably the closest I feel like we've had to a Dengaroo style meta, where it was just so easy. Flying the Fat Falcons with some support was sickeningly easy, and it was one of the things that forced the introduction of the TLTs, the auto thrusters. All of these cards came about to try and rein in those Fat with Turret metas. And the problem is, obviously, we're in a meta outside of that where you aren't getting a lot of punchy attacks coming through. It was all about the lower tiered multiple attacks, like the crack swarms were doing really well. Aces have been doing really well, and aces normally running a Fel and an Inquisitor or something like that, only having a low number of mainly 3 dice attacks at most. It's relatively easy for Dengar to shrug that off and not take damage quick enough for it to be relevant. If we were in a meta where it was Shuranu and Whisper, I don't feel like Dengar would be doing as well, because that will push the damage past Dengar's defenses. And I feel like we're not back in the Fat with Turret meta. I feel like Dengaroo is something else entirely, because the way Manaroo functions is it's a combination of Manaroo's ability, Zuckuss, and the fact that Dengar's power skill 9 with the ability to potentially fire twice a round. It's that combination that all works together to make the list function properly. But that just goes to show, and I suppose I'll go all the way back to Wave 1 just to show that there are the rose-tinted glasses that people have about how the current OP list is what's breaking the meta. The easy mode in Wave 1 was when people used to just take 6 of the TIE fighters and literally deploy them touching each other and just fly at people and use the Hell Runner rerolls and just kill people that way. At the time, you didn't have Falcons and stuff to get behind them. The X-Wings didn't have engine upgrades for any repositioning at all, so it was really difficult for the X-Wing players to not just joust them, and it was one of those where it got really dicey. If it was an Ace X-Wing or a Y-Wing, a list would probably lose. If it was 4 X-Wings, it might get enough damage through and pop enough TIE fighters that the X-Wings would win. But it just goes to show that every meta there has been an easy list to play, and it's one of those things where we have the belief in our own abilities, but it isn't the list, it's the players, or alternatively that it's always that list is broken. I feel like there's nothing wrong with having lists that are easier to fly than other ones. It gives you a nice entry level into a competitive scene. The problem comes when the things that can beat them are pushed out of the meta by other things as well. So, for example, the things that I feel like beat Dengaroo are Ordnance and anything that can do a big spike of damage, so Phantoms with the 4 dice attacks, Waffle Rebels with the 4 dice attacks, any torpedoes like Protons and Plasmas, really strong. But when you were changing the clarifying the use of R4 Agromech to bring that power level down for the 3 jump masters, so they aren't quite as prevalent. Phantoms aren't quite as prevalent just because of the fact you've got the newer aces as well. I feel like Whisper's poised to make a comeback personally, but it's that pilot skill bid. You quite easily do a Dangaroo list with an initiative bid of like 5 points to make sure you're shooting before Whisper, and that definitely makes her a sad panda. But having an Echo and maybe something else with a high attack value, so this is one where the Upsilon shuttle really help by adding in those higher punchy attacks. Aren't really many viable options for HLC platforms at the moment. You're not really going to see B-Wings taught in HLCs because too many other things will just eat them as easy points. And just stuff like that. It's anything that can smash that damage through, get in there and be rolling the 4 dice attacks, because you should be pushing it past the two agility that he has. So that's about it. I know it's been a bit all over the place. I don't feel like the video has flowed as well as I wanted it to. Second attempt at recording it, so I probably should have stuck with the first one. But yeah, I wanted to just go over that. I feel like Dengar is the easiest list I've flown. So if you're wanting to try to get better at the game, I feel like it's a good time to fly it now. But don't fly it to improve your flying with the list. Just try and fly it really safely and watch the mistakes your opponent makes. Try and learn from your opponent's mistakes whilst you're beating them with this list. And then you'll have a much better grasp of why the list is winning. And most of the time it isn't because of what the list itself does. It's how your opponent makes the wrong choices. So give it a try. Watch your opponents and just try and learn from how they're approaching the game. And if you do lose with the list, analyse how you lost and what you can do better, and hopefully you'll learn and grow as a player that way. I feel like there's really good potential at the moment for us to learn a lot from how this list works and what else we can put in to try and force other things to work similarly, or just get those ideas of how important it can be for positioning, not for the current shot, not for next turn's shot, but for the shooting 3 or 4 turns down the line, because that's what playing Dangaroo forces upon you. You need to plan out where you want Manaroo to be to make sure that she's not going to hamstring Dangar with turning off Lone Wolf, whilst also accounting for her own positioning to keep her safe, to keep feeding him the token, stuff like that. So I think it's a really good list to play to get better at the game, despite how easy it is. And hopefully you'll enjoy it, because I find it good fun to fly, even if it is a bit soul crushing for your opponents at times. So remember, fly casual or just don't be a dick, but enjoy it, and see you next time.